Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Warren's Team Talk. And if you're new to my channel, I'd like to give you a big warm welcome as always, and I hope you enjoy what I've got on offer today. Now today's video is going to be my story of watching Arsenal between 1980 and 1984. Now I hope you enjoy this, but I have got a little admission to make. The admission is that yesterday I was working on this video and somehow or other, I don't know how, I managed to delete my script because the thing is, when I'm doing these, I'd like to just do it off the cuff, but the problem is there's so much information that I like to share with you that I can't do it. I might have been able to do it a few years ago when I was a bit younger, but I certainly can't do it now. And anyway, yeah, so I accidentally deleted my prompt stroke script, whatever you want to call it. So today, yeah, I'm going to try and do it off the script and we'll see what happens. So I hope it's enjoyable and that you enjoy it. Please remember, if you haven't subscribed already, can I please ask you to do that for me? Because it really helps me to get myself noticed by YouTube, and it'll hopefully get them to pump the video out to here, there and everywhere. So yeah, if you could do that for me, that'd be brilliant. Also, for the same reason, please put a like on the video. It's like the thumbs up button, and also make sure that you pass it on to anyone who you think might be interested in watching it or listening to it, whatever. Because it all really helps. Anyway, so without further ado, I hope you enjoy it. I hope that you're well and looking after yourselves. Talking of which, I had my second COVID jab on Wednesday. So it's now Friday when I'm recording this, so that might have had something to do with how I managed to mess up the script on Thursday. But there you go, never mind. So anyway, let's get on with it and let's see what happens, see whether I am able to get through this without making too many bloody defensive errors and whatnot. Hopefully I ain't going to become the Mustafi of the YouTube world. Anyway, so let's get on with it and see what happens. So here we go. This is it. This is episode 3 of the Memories of the Football Terrace. It's my series where I look at my experiences of watching Arsenal. And now we've got to 1980 to 1984. That's what I'm covering today. So that should be quite interesting. So let's get on with it. So the first season the first thing they're gonna do is look at some additional stories that I missed out in the last episode, which I think will be quite interesting. The first one of those was my first ever away game watching Arsenal, which came on the 10th of November 1979, when I went with one of my best school friends to watch Arsenal play Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. His mum took us there for the day. It's a great day out. It's a packed stadium, I remember that. And I remember that all the Arsenal fans were packed in at the white wall end of the ground. There was this terrace there that, I'm not sure if it's still there, but it used to have this like big white wall through the middle of the terrace. So yeah, and all the Arsenal fans were packed in there. And the Palace team at that time had managed to get themselves the name the team of the 80s. So but it never really quite worked out that way. But yeah, so Arsenal Palace met. I was quite confident going to the game. I thought we'd be able to beat them quite comfortably, but it never really happened, really. I remember the winning goal. I think it was either free kick or corner or something like that. the ball come over, it was cleared by the Arsenal defence. Someone smashed it back into goalwards, and it hit Dave Swindlehurst on the way in, and sort of bounced up over him and deflected off him and into the empty net. So yeah, Palace ended up winning the game by 1-0. So, and interestingly, that day Kenny Sampson was playing for Palace, who would go on to play for Arsenal. Yeah, so, and it was an interesting day, it really was. But the next story is quite a funny one. This one is all about Sammy Nelson and his arse. So basically what happened, Arsenal on the 3rd of April, 1979, I didn't actually go to this game, but I remember it happening and my dad telling me about it as well. Because I think he went to the game. I'm pretty sure that he did. It was a night game, and he would have been in the North Bank. And basically what happened was that in the game, Sammy Nelson scored an own goal, the Arsenal left back at the time, to give Coventry City the lead. And then sort of later on in the game, he managed to score an absolute screamer of an equaliser. And after he scored the goal, he just got loads of jip from the Arsenal supporters. Now, Sammy Nelson was like quite, how can I put it? He wasn't slow in coming forward, and he wasn't scared to voice his opinions about things. And, you know, I remember, I think I told you the last time about how he settled a dispute on a coach in Turin when Arsenal were playing against an Italian side in a friendly, and there was a bit of commotion down the front of the coach. He ran down the front of the coach and slapped a fella who was causing the disruption, and then the coach driver was able to shut doors and they were able to drive off again. So yeah, he wasn't slow in coming forward, and he was a bit vociferous as well. Anyway, so what he decided to do after he'd scored this goal, instead of celebrating with his teammates, he ran behind the goal at the North Bank and pulled his shorts down and bared his backside to the North Bank, as you can see in the photograph there. So yeah, it caused quite a lot of consternation. He got suspended by the club and quite heavily fined, I think, as well. But another funny thing that happened as the upshot of that game, I think in the next game, a guy ran onto the pitch out of the North Bank and in the centre circle dropped his trousers and showed his arse to the North Bank again. So yeah, that was quite funny. Anyway, so moving on, we're going to start the story off properly for the 1980-81 season. And in the pre-season for this season, Arsenal ended up having to sell Liam Brady to Juventus, and they signed Kenny Sampson. Now, the Kenny Sampson deal was a weird one, because what happened was that they signed Clive Allen. I can't remember where he was playing. I think he might have been playing at QPR. And Arsenal bought him for about 1.2 million, I think it was. And I think Arsenal knew that Palace were desperate to get their hands on him. But Arsenal really wanted Kenny Sampson. So what they did was that they signed Clive Allen, and then they swapped Clive Allen for Kenny Sampson. Why they just didn't go out and buy Kenny Sampson in the first place, I really don't know, but that's what happened. And then also, I think it was either that pre-season or later on in the season, because at that time there were no transfer windows. The transfers were allowed to happen all throughout the season. Arsenal moved Pat Rice on, and he ended up going to Watford. So this is the Arsenal team group for the 1980-81 season, and yeah, the familiar faces are there. There's Brian Talbot, Frank Stapleton, Pat Rice, Graham Ricks, Johnny Hollins. Johnny Hollins was a great one because he used to come out. I remember sometimes me and my dad would stand in like the youth enclosure that ran alongside the front of the West Stand, and where parents used to be able to go in with their kids. And I remember Johnny Hollins, when he used to come over to take a throw in, it's while he was waiting for the ball to come back, he'd stand there like having a chat and a laugh with some of the supporters. And he was a very, very funny guy. I know that. I can remember that. So, yeah, so that's the Arsenal team group for the season. And the first game that I can remember going to that year was on the 2nd of December. It was like an evening game, which was a bit unusual for me at that time, because I never really used to go to away games because of the fact of the journey time to come home again, and like not getting home till really late. But I was still on school holiday, so I was able to sleep in, because otherwise it would have been a school night and I would have had to go to school the next day. But yeah, I remember this game, and Arsenal defeated Swansea City 3-1 after drawing the first leg away 1-1. And Arsenal ran out, obviously, because of the home leg, they ran out 4-2 winners on aggregate. And what I remember about this game is that Kenny Sampson and Graham Ricks like struck up a really good partnership down the left-hand side, and they absolutely destroyed Swansea, the pair of them going down the left-hand side in this game. And yeah, Kenny Sampson looked absolutely superb, and he was a great left-back for the club. He really was. So probably Arsenal's greatest ever left-back until, we bought Kieran Tierney recently. I think Kieran Tierney will end up being better than him, but at the moment there's not much difference between the two of them, and they actually play very similarly. So yeah, great memories of that match. So other than that, I don't really have that much memory of that season. Obviously, the main reason was because my parents, they were quite financially strapped because of the cottage that they were doing up that I told you about the last time. But I do remember bits and pieces of the season. But I remember one game in particular that stood out was on the 18th of April 1981, when Arsenal played Ipswich at Portman Road. Now, I remember this game in particular because Arsenal were sort of towards the top end of the table, let's say, and they were putting in some strong performances, and me and my family were on holiday, and we'd been out for the day, but I wasn't really expecting Arsenal to win the game. And when we got back from being out, because we had I think it was a caravan that we had somewhere, and when we come back, I put the radio on to see if I could find out what the score was, and Arsenal won 2-0 at Portman Road, and Ipswich at that time were going for the title, and I think this result put a massive dent in their title aspirations, and no one really expected Arsenal to win the game, like I say, and particularly not because it was at Portman Road as well. And like I say, Arsenal won the game by 2-0. So yeah, great performance. And then after the game, this meant that Arsenal moved up to 5th in the table, 10 points behind the league leaders, Aston Villa, and 7 points behind second place Ipswich. So it was getting quite crowded for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th place spots, and also Liverpool were in 6th, 1 point behind all the teams who were 3rd. So it was getting very, very tight at the top of the table, and as you can see, there's only 6 points separating the team in third place and the team who was in 10th, who was Leeds United. So it was a great result, really. Anyway, so on to the next game that I can remember was the final day of the season when Arsenal played Aston Villa at home. Again, I didn't go to the game, but I remember seeing it on TV. I think it was on Match of the Day. And that day, Arsenal had Pele as a guest for the day. And I remember seeing him running around the pitch, doing a lap of honour and so on. And you could see him here in this picture. And the fans absolutely loved it. There was a chance to sign him up. And it was a great day for both clubs because although Arsenal beat Aston Villa by 2-0, it meant that the other results that had happened that day meant that Aston Villa were crowned as league champions. So yeah, Willie Young scored a goal. Was the first goal of the game in a 2-0 win, and then Brian McDermott scored the second goal to make it 2-0. Brian McDermott, he was the guy who ended up going on to be a manager. I think it was at Reading. I'm not sure, but I think it was at Reading. And yeah, he looked quite a promising youngster. I remember that, but he never really actually established himself on a permanent basis in the Arsenal forward line. But yeah, he looked a really, really good prospect. I remember that. So anyway, like I said, in Arsenal's last 11 games of the season that year, they won 8, drew 3, and lost 1, and scored 19 goals in 11 games and only conceded 11, and got 19 points from their final 11 games, which was under the old 2 points for a win system. So as you can see, they did really, really well, and it ended up finishing 3rd in the table. So now on to the 1981-82 season. Let's see what that one brings. So during that season, in the pre-season, Arsenal and Manchester United got involved in a dispute, one of many such disputes that they've had down the years. This one centered around Frank Stapleton, because what happened there was no Bosman ruling or anything like that, where players could run down their contracts and just leave and on a free transfer if their contract to run out. Frank Stapleton had been in talks with Manchester United about moving to Manchester United. Manchester United put in a derisory bid for him, and Arsenal wanted somewhere in the region of about £1.82 million for him. And United offered, I don't even know how much their bid was, but what used to happen then was that if clubs couldn't agree on a transfer fee for a player, it would go to like a tribunal and they would set the fee. The tribunal would come back and put a price on Frank Stapleton of £900,000, which to me is a derisory figure. When you consider the players that were going for more than that at the time, and Frank Stapleton's goal scoring record for Arsenal and also for the Republic of Ireland, it was absolutely ridiculous. And in my opinion, and most other Arsenal supporters, we felt that Manchester United in effect had stolen him from us. So yeah, it led to a lot of bad blood between Arsenal and United. So anyway, so this was the Arsenal squad for the 1981-82 season. You can see George Wood, the reserve goalkeeper there, stood at the back. The tall guy next to Pat Jennings, and there's also Paul Davis is in the squad there as well, who would go on to be a great player and a personal favourite of mine. The guy was absolutely, he had fantastic ability, and how he never made more England caps, I do not know. It was just he was so talented. He was like graceful on the pitch. He had great passing range. His technique was fantastic. He was strong as an ox. He was a great player. And the proudest moment, the thing I was most proudest for about him was in a game against Southampton once, when I think it was Glenn Cockrell, Southampton. They'd had a few niggles during the game, and then all of a sudden, I think Glenn Cockrell racially abused him or something. So Paul Davis just gave him this almighty left hook and like decked him. And after the next few games after that, there were chants going up at the North Bank, like Paul Davis is better than Tyson. But he was fucking bang out of order, and he got disciplined really badly by the FA for it. Yet the guy who like racially abused him, nothing happened to him. It's absolutely disgusting. But there you go. Anyway, so the league season started with a home game against Stoke City, and we went into this game feeling quite confident. I honestly, like, despite the fact we'd lost Frank Stapleton and whatever, I really thought that we'd go in and we'd make a strong run in the league that season, particularly after the way the previous season had ended. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. Arsenal lost at home by 1-0. Lee Chapman scored the goal, but just before half time. And at that time, they also had Adrian Heath playing up front for them. So Stoke won the game by 1-0. Now, the next game that I can remember from this season was in October, when in the UEFA Cup, Arsenal were drawn against a part-time team from Belgium called Winterslag. I'm not even sure if they're still in existence, to be quite honest. But they were part-timers, and Arsenal lost the first leg by 1-0 after a chap by the name of Carl Berger scored in the 62nd minute. Then in the second leg, Arsenal won by 2-1, but the game obviously ended 2-2 on aggregate, and Winterslags won on the away goal rule. Arsenal's goals that night came from John Hollins and Graham Ricks. But what was notable about this game was that Arsenal, because of the UEFA rules at the time, if there was a colour clash, it was the home team that had to change their kit. So Arsenal played in their yellow and blue kit at home. And it's not very often that Arsenal have had to play in their second choice kit in home games, but it happened on this night. And for a while in Europe, that was what the ruling was. So, yeah, and I remember listening to this game on the radio, and oh my God, what a disaster it was. And the other thing, I was like, the sticker I took at school because of this result against this bunch of part-timers was absolutely outrageous. It really was. It was awful. My life got made a misery, I can tell you. But yeah, so yeah, it wasn't good, I can tell you that. So anyway, so at the end of the season, Arsenal ended up finishing fifth though. They won 20 games and lost 11. But you can see where the problem was by looking at the table. Arsenal only managed to score 48 goals in 42 games, where the rest of the teams in the top five, like, you know, were scoring 59, 67, 75. Liverpool, the champions, got 80. So it was obvious to me where the problem was. They just weren't scoring enough goals because the defence looked quite, you know, fairly okay. They only let in 37, so it wasn't that bad. So yeah, it was bit difficult that year, really. So the next season, the 1982-83 season, that was a bit of a roller coaster season. And in the pre-season, Arsenal signed Tony Woodcock and Lee Chapman. Tony Woodcock, he would go on to be Arsenal's leading goal scorer for 3 years running after he joined. He was a great forward for Arsenal. He scored lots of goals and what have you. Lee Chapman, though, that was a bit of a disaster. He didn't really perform particularly well, didn't score that many goals, and he ended up going to Sunderland or something like that. And I don't think he did even that particularly well there, to be quite honest. And this season saw Arsenal using my favourite ever away kit, and I just wish to God they'd bring it back. It was a green and blue kit, and I absolutely loved it. I did. I loved it. I just thought it was an amazing kit. I know some Arsenal fans didn't like it. They said that we looked like Wimbledon ball boys or something like that, but I loved it. I really, really did. So yeah, it was. I thought it was great. So yeah, this is the Arsenal team group for the 1982-83 season, and as you can see, there's familiar faces there again. And Chris White. Now, he's an interesting character. He was a centre-back, and I was never really that sure about him as a centre-back. He was a weird one. I mean, the fans loved him. I loved him. He was nicknamed Huggy Bear because at the time there was this American TV show called Starsky and Hutch, and there was this guy, he was like a police informant or something, and he was called Huggy Bear as well. And I think that's why he got the nickname Huggy Bear. But he was brilliant. His form was really indifferent. One day he played really well, another game he played really badly. A couple of times he ended up playing up front. It was just, it was unbelievable. And then there was Peter Nicholas, who added a bit of steel into the midfield, and Raphael Mead had so much potential. He was another one who was quite indifferent with his form, and when he played well, he was like almost unplayable. He was like such a handful, but then he was so indifferent. One week he'd be good, one week he wouldn't, and then obviously at the end there we got the famous Paul Davis. What a hero that guy was. And Johnny Hollins and Paul Vasson, the guy who scored a goal in Turin to take Arsenal through to the European Cup Winners' Cup final a few years before. John Hawley, oh my God. He was probably the worst striker that Arsenal have ever signed, to be honest. But anyway. So the first game I can remember from this season was when Arsenal played in the, I think it was the UEFA Cup. Yeah, the UEFA Cup. And they played Spartak Moscow away. We went 2-0 up, and then somehow or other they managed to lose the game 3-2. And the game was played obviously in Moscow, and it was so cold inside the ground that the Russian fans or the Soviet Union fans, whatever you want to call them, because at the time the country was part of the Soviet Union, they were lighting bonfires on the terraces apparently to keep themselves warm. And I remember listening to the game on the radio because it kicked off, I think, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon because of the weather, because of the coldness and what have you. And yeah, I remember being really upset afterwards after throwing a 2-0 goal, 2-0 lead away from home. And I remember my dad saying to me, look, don't worry, it's fine. We've got 2 away goals. We'll bring them back to Highbury and finish the job off. And I thought, yeah, probably he's right. So anyway, so the second leg came. My dad went to the game. I obviously, because it was a school night, I wasn't able to go. And I remember sitting in my bedroom, laying in bed, listening to the game on the radio, and Arsenal got destroyed. Oh my God. They lost the game 5-2. And I remember the next day when I got up, my dad was like in the kitchen making breakfast. And I just said to him, what the hell happened? And he said, listen, he said, every time they had a shot at goal, it went in. It was just unbelievable. The performance that they put in was breathtaking, apparently. And it was so impressive that loads of Arsenal fans stayed behind to applaud them off the pitch because it was that good. And how often do you ever see that, like opposition supporters clapping the team off the pitch because of their performance? So there you go. That says it all. And then the next game that I can remember is when Arsenal played Notts Forest away from home. And Arsenal lost the game by 3-0. And I remember Terry Neal was trying to implement a new tactical system. And then basically he turned around in the press and said, look, we're going to be defending as a pack and attacking as a pack. The only problem is it didn't really work that way. We did tend to attack as a pack, but the defending bit, no, it did never happen. So it was a bit of a disaster, that game, and Forest just picked us off and destroyed us. And then next one was away at Luton Town. And I remember this game being on Match of the Day. The game was a 2-2 draw. And to be honest, I thought Arsenal played quite well in the game. He always looked threatening, but just gave 2 silly goals away, if I remember rightly. And yeah, like I say, the game ended in the 2-2 draw. Now, I remember around this time we were watching Sports Night or Match of the Day or something like that. And then at the end of the program, this guy said, yeah, we've got some really exciting big news for Arsenal fans. And I thought, oh, what's that then? And the guy said apparently Arsenal are very, very close to signing Diego Maradona. And the deal's almost done and everything. And yeah, he could be coming to play at Arsenal. And I thought, oh my God. Because I knew this was around 1982, and obviously I knew about him because I'd seen him play in the World Cup in the summer, and he looked absolutely fantastic. And apparently, the reason the deal fell through was because of the FA. The reason they gave, right, was because they didn't want any foreign players who were from outside the European Union getting a work permit for 2 years to come and play here. Now, I've got 2 questions about that. How come, if that's the case, that Tottenham were allowed to sign Osvaldo Ardiles and Ricky Villa? And how come all these other clubs had signed players from outside the European Union as well? And then people question why Arsenal have got this so-called chip on their shoulders about the FA having an agenda against them. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I'm sorry, but that guy, Graham Kelly, I don't ever meet him, because if I did, I'd have a few sharp words for him. I can tell you that now. Because the fella would have lit up English football. He really would have done. And I'm sure that Arsenal would have had an illustrious spell with him playing for us, that's for sure. Anyway, so in December that year, though, Arsenal finally managed to get their hands on Vladimir Petrovic. Now, they've been chasing him for about a year, 18 months. And the deal had been so difficult. 1 week it was off, 1 week it was on, then it was back on again, then it was off again. It was an absolute nightmare. But he finally came in December 1982. And I loved the guy because at the time we had this reputation. Sometimes it was a fair accusation. Sometimes I didn't think it was, for being a very dour and very sort of like, I don't know how you put it. It was like there wasn't a lot of flair in the team, and he had it in abundance. He was so technically gifted. As all really, to be fair, all players that you see these days from the former Yugoslav republics, they're all very, very talented and very technically gifted. You look at the Croatian players at the moment, for example, like Modric and Brozovic and all the rest of them, they're all very technically gifted and good on the ball. And his football brain, Vladimir's football brain was incredible. And the fact that he was so technically gifted and his football brain was so quick and whatnot, it was a big problem for him in the Arsenal team because his teammates weren't like that. And I used to work with a guy who was from Belgrade, and he told me that he's idolised in Belgrade and that he's in the Red Star Hall of Fame and all the rest of it. And apparently he told me that Vladimir had a few like heated meetings with Terry Neal about his role in the Arsenal team, and apparently complained about his teammates not being on a similar technical level to him, and not that Arsenal weren't playing to meet his or to use his talents properly. And Terry Neal turned around to him and said, "Look, Vladimir, I'm really sorry, but I can get one player to change the way they play and whatever, but I can't get 10 of them to do it." So in the end, Vladimir, God bless him, sadly ended up having to move on. But the thing I can't understand about it is that they signed this player who was obviously extremely talented, and then he got told that they wanted him to mark the overlapping fullback. I'm sorry, but that is just insane. It is. And in the one game where they let him off the leash and just allowed him to play with freedom, he was against West Ham at Upton Park, and apparently he absolutely destroyed West Ham. Arsenal won the game by 3-1. Vladimir scored one and created the other two, and he was just outstanding, apparently. Anyway, so in the next game was in February, and it was the League Cup semi-finals against Manchester United. The first game at Highbury, Arsenal lost by 4-2. And on reflection, probably the time was over by then after the first leg. But I remember feeling after the first leg, yeah, you know, we can still pull this out the bag. If we score an early goal at Old Trafford, we can put them under pressure and they'll start panicking, and then we'll get a second one and it'll go to extra time, and maybe we'll grab a third one in extra time, because we'd have needed to win the game by 3 clear goals in order to go through, because there was no away goals until the end of extra time. So, but unfortunately, it didn't happen like that. Manchester United ended up winning the second leg at Old Trafford by 2-1. So, yeah, bit of a disaster, really. So I remember also that year, I'd been saving up my pocket money because I'd had this idea, like the tail end of the year, that I wanted to be able to take my dad to see Arsenal for his birthday, because they were due to play Nottingham Forest on his birthday. And my mum helped me organise it, to get the tickets and what have you, without my dad finding out. And on the day of the match, in the morning, I said to him, right, here's your birthday present. We're going to go and see Arsenal play Nottingham Forest. And he was absolutely made up. He really was. He was so happy because obviously we hadn't been able to go for a while because of the stuff with the house and what have you. Unfortunately, Arsenal didn't really put in a good performance for him. We drew the game 0-0 with Nottingham Forest at home, and it was dreadful. And I remember my dad saying to me, look, the problem with this team is they're not playing as a team. There's a group of 3 or 4 of them who are just playing in a team. The rest of them, it's all so disjointed and they're not playing together. And looking back at it, it's probably true. So, yeah, so the game ended in a 0-0 draw, and it was dreadful. The game was awful. So the next game was the following week, I can remember, was Arsenal beat Aston Villa 2-0 at Highbury in the FA Cup quarter-final to get to the semi-finals. Tony Woodcock and Vladimir Petrovic scored the goals. The goal that you can see here is the goal from Tony Woodcock, and then you can see Vladimir celebrating his goal, which was a great goal, by the way. And then in the semi-final, Arsenal came up against Manchester United once again, and once again they lost the game by 2-1. I did feel quite confident going into the game because I thought that surely we couldn't lose them again for a third time, but we did. Arsenal went 1-0 up. A goal was set up by Vladimir, and I think it was Tony Woodcock who got it. But United came back and went on to win the game by 2-1. And that was the year that they ended up playing Brighton in the final. The FA Cup final that year, they drew 2-2 in the first game at Wembley, and it was the game where a guy by the name of Smith broke through, and the commentator made the famous line, "And hit it, Smith must score," but he didn't, did he? And but United won the replay by 4-0 to win the trophy. So at the end of that season, Arsenal ended up finishing 10th. Very much like this season, really. They've lost as many games as they won, and felt well off the pace. Again, they just didn't score enough goals, really. But they conceded quite a few as well. So they had a lot of work to do the pre-season for the next year to put that right. And so let's look at what happened. So in the 1983-84 pre-season, Arsenal signed John Lukic from Leeds, and one of my favourite all-time Arsenal players, Cheeky Charlie Nicholas, signed from Celtic. Now that was an incredible signing because at the time, that previous year, he'd scored over 50 goals for Celtic in the season, and Arsenal, Manchester United and Liverpool were all chasing his signature. And I know that he was finding it difficult to make up his mind about where to go. One of his great all-time heroes was Kenny Dalglish, but he was worried about going to Liverpool because he was worried about being compared with Kenny Dalglish. And obviously the link between Manchester United and Celtic is quite big, and then obviously there's the prospect of coming to Arsenal. So it kept playing on his mind, and he got selected to play for Scotland in end of season traditional England-Scotland game at Wembley. And apparently he was standing in the tunnel waiting to come out onto the pitch. And instead of like focusing on the game, all he could think about was this transfer. And consequently, because of that, he had a really poor game. And Scotland lost the game by 2-1. So anyway, but he finally joined Arsenal. And yeah, this is the team group picture for the 1983-84 season. You can see John Lukic there and Pat Jennings and Charlie. And sat in the centre is club captain David O'Leary, absolutely superb centre back for Arsenal and great servant to the club. And in my opinion, he should be the chief executive of the club. No question about it. So yeah, the first game of the season, Arsenal played Luton Town at home, which was Charlie Nicholas's debut. And I remember my dad and I went to the game, and I remember the roar when he came out onto the pitch. It was absolutely deafening. I remember my dad being really excited about Charlie coming to join Arsenal. And I remember him saying to me after the game, he said, the thing is about that lad, he said, every time he gets the ball, I feel like something's going to happen. He said, he's so talented. He said, I don't think I've ever felt this way about a football player since watching Dennis Law play. He said, there's something about him. Like when he gets the ball, you've almost guaranteed that something's going to happen. He just looks so dangerous. And he said to me, even if he doesn't score, the opposition are going to be so worried about him that it's going to create space for his strike partner, i.e. Tony Woodcock. And that's exactly what happened. That opposition teams did mark him really heavily, and it left space for his strike partner, Tony Woodcock. Then the next game after that game against Luton, which Arsenal won by 2-1, Arsenal went to Wolves and they played Wolverhampton Wanderers, and they won the game by 2-1 thanks to 2 goals from Charlie, one of which was a penalty, and then I think he scored in the dying minutes of the game to give Arsenal victory. And he won a lot of praise from the media and the Wolves manager for his performance. I think in the press they gave him a 10 out of 10 for his performance. So yeah, that was great. It looked very, very promising. The next game away at Southampton on the 3rd of September, both clubs went into the game with 100% record. So all the talk was about the fact that both teams were going into the game unbeaten and with 100% record, and that something would have to give. Unfortunately for Arsenal, Southampton won the game by 1-0. But again, Charlie played really well and dominated the forward play for Arsenal. Just couldn't find the goal that his performance deserved. The thing is about this season, the next game that I can remember is that when Arsenal played Liverpool at home, and my dad and I went to this game as well. And it was, like I say, at home to Liverpool, and we were sitting in the clock end. And to be quite honest, Liverpool gave Arsenal a bit of a lesson, to be quite honest. They won the game by 2-0, and one of the goals that Liverpool scored by Kenny Dalglish was an absolute classic, beautiful goal. He just curled it in from the right-hand side of the penalty area at the clock end, and it was a superb goal. Yeah, and like I say, I think they won the game quite comfortably. Charlie did hit the bar in the first couple of minutes, and he did play quite well, but yeah, Liverpool were just a bit too good for Arsenal that day, to be honest. then after, I don't really remember too much until Arsenal played Aston Villa on the 29th of October. And in this game, it was a remarkable game because Arsenal won the game at Villa Park by 6 goals to 2. And Tony Woodcock scored 5 that day. And I think it was Brian McDermott got the other one, but I can't really remember, to be honest. But what I remember about this game is the fact that I was at my friend's house playing Spirito with him. And we were sitting there and the news kept coming through on the radio and Arsenal scored again, Arsenal scored again. And it was like sort of about 15 minutes into the second half and Arsenal were already 6-2 up. And I was thinking, bloody hell, they carry on like this, they're gonna get double figures. But they sort of just took the foot off the pedal and eased up and just saw the game out and won by 6 goals to 2. Then on the 5th of November, 1983, a youngster by the name of Tony Adams broke into the team. And I couldn't not have talked about the 1982-83 season without mentioning him, because he went on to be probably one of the club's greatest ever players. He's now known as Mr. Arsenal, and he made his debut in a 2-1 home defeat against Sunderland. An absolutely commanding centre-back and probably one of the game's greatest ever defenders. Then a few days later, Arsenal went to Tottenham in the League Cup 3rd round. And I remember listening to the game on the radio and the abuse that Charlie Nicholas got from the Spurs fans, because up until this game, he'd not scored at all since the Wolves game. And they were giving him so much abuse. And in this game, Tony Woodcock scored a goal. And then Charlie got one as well. And then when he scored, he endeared himself to the Arsenal fans probably forever, because he ran over to the Spurs fans and gave it to them, to be quite honest. So yeah, fantastic. And then the next game I remember after that was Boxing Day on the 26th of December, because prior to that, I think about 10 days before, Arsenal had sacked Terry Neal and Don Howe had assumed temporary charge of the team. And Arsenal won the game by 4 goals to 2. Charlie scored 2 and Raphael Mead scored 2. And they destroyed Tottenham, to be quite honest. Yeah, so Arsenal won the game by 4 goals to 2. And I do remember the score coming through on the radio. And it was a big tonic to me, because like just not even 2 weeks before, my dad had died, and you know, obviously I was devastated, because not only was he my dad, even at the time he was my best friend, and it was just a hammer blow for me, to be quite honest. But yeah, that's life, I guess. And you know, we all said that he'd gone upstairs and transformed the fortunes of the club and what have you. And I remember at his funeral, we even had a red and white football on the top of his coffin. So God bless him. Then I remember on the 7th of January, I went with some of my neighbours who were Middlesbrough fans to watch Middlesbrough play Arsenal at Ayresome Park in Middlesbrough. And we went, I don't know if we went up on the train or my neighbour Ed drove up. I can't remember what happened, but anyway, we went to the game. Before the game, we went and saw Ed's grandmother, who lived really close to Ayresome Park, and bless her, lovely old lady. She even made me a nice cup of tea. Not that I like tea, I can't stand it, but she made me a cup of tea, and I didn't have the heart to say to her that I really don't like tea and I didn't drink tea or anything like that. So I sat there and drank it. And then after that, we went to this pub in Middlesbrough, and I remember one of my neighbours who was a good friend of mine. I spent a lot of time with her, Karen. She said to me, Warren, whatever you do, darling, don't try not to speak too much in this pub. So I thought, oh my God, what am I going into? So we got inside the pub, and I thought, right, I better not say anything. It's probably better just to keep my mouth shut. And we got inside the pub, and Ed was getting the drinks in at the bar, and he said to me, Warren, what would you like to drink? So I told him what I wanted, and this massive Middlesbrough fan who I stood behind said, hey, oh, there's a cockney behind me. And I thought, oh no, here we go. So I was just like getting ready to like defend myself, and he turned around and said, don't worry, son. He said, if you stay here, you'll be all right, but whatever you do, don't go down that end of the pub. So I didn't. But I ended up having a nice chat with him and his mates, and they were lovely guys. They really were. But it was a bit hairy, let's put it that way, and I got away with that. And then we went into the home end, the Middlesbrough home end, their cop end, and I was stood right up at the back. And the game did not go well for Arsenal at all. They went 1-0 down, then Graham Ricks equalised, I think. Then they went 2-1 up. And then after Middlesbrough went 2-1 up, they were absolutely battering Arsenal, trying to get the third one. And then suddenly, out of the blue, Charlie Nicholas broke down he went down on the left-hand side of the pitch. And from just outside the corner of the penalty area, he curled one into the top right-hand corner of the goal to make it 2-2. And I had real difficulty containing myself. Then Middlesbrough went 3-2 ahead, and they won the game. And fair enough, they deserved it. They really did. They were much better than Arsenal on the day. Arsenal performed quite poorly, I felt. So yeah, fair play to them. Then in February 1984, Arsenal signed Paul Mariner. I think it was around Valentine's Day that he signed, and he'd been signed from Ipswich, and after he signed, Arsenal adopted a three-prong attacking front line with Tony Woodcock, Charlie Nicholas and Paul Mariner all playing up front together. And from that date, on the 18th of February, they, until the end of the season, they went on an unbelievable run. In the next 15 games, they won 8 of them, drew 5 and only lost 2. And scored 32 goals but conceded 21 and got 29 points out of possible 45, I suppose. Yeah, so they did really, really well. So on the 10th of March, I remember this game. Arsenal won by 4-1 against Ipswich Town. I was at the game, and I remember it well. I remember Arsenal absolutely battering Ipswich. And then the next 2 games, Arsenal defeated Wolverhampton Wanderers by 4-1 on the 24th of March. Charlie Nicholas got a penalty. Graham Ricks scored 1. Stuart Robson got 1, and Tony Woodcock got 1. And then on the 7th of April, Arsenal battered Stoke City, and when I say battered, they absolutely battered them. Paul Mariner got one, Charlie Nicholas got one, and Tony Woodcock got one. And it was about this time that I started going to Arsenal matches with a couple of guys that I knew in my hometown in Sevenoaks, and they were all Gooners, and we all started going together. One of them was a wee bit older than me, and we all used to stand together on the North Bank, and yeah, it was great. We stood near, I think it was Tony Hadley from Bandar Belly used to be there. We used to see him on a regular basis in there. Yeah, it was great memories. Really, really enjoyed it. All of us were real mad, passionate Arsenal supporters. And in Paul Mariner's first game for Arsenal was against Aston Villa on the 18th of February, and a game against Aston Villa at home, and the game ended in a 1-1 draw. And then on the 21st of April, Arsenal played a really exciting game against their bitter North London rivals, Tottenham Hotspur. Arsenal won the game by 3-0. They went 1-0 up, then Tottenham equalised, then Arsenal went 2-1 up, and then 3-1 up, and Tottenham pulled one back through Steve Archibald to make it 3-2. But Charlie scored the third of Arsenal's goals, and there was a big celebration in front of the North Bank when he scored, and there was a song that used to go around the North Bank from there on afterwards, because he kept scoring. He made a habit of scoring against Spurs, and the song would go, "Who put the ball in the Tottenham net? Charlie, Charlie. Who put the ball in the Tottenham net? Charlie Nicholas. Charlie Nicholas. Charlie Nicholas." And so it went on. So yeah, and he absolutely loved it. So at the end of that season, Arsenal finished 6th, and they scored 74 goals, and it was the second highest amount of goals in the first division, behind third place Notts Forest. But they let in 60 odd goals, which was way too many if they wanted to seriously challenge for the title. And it was by some distance the most out of the rest of the top 6 sides that year. So yeah, it was an exciting season, and like I said, a bit of a roller coaster, but the last 15 games, like I said, showed a lot of promise for the next season. So there you go. So that's my Arsenal story from 1980 to 1984. Right, so that's the end of the video for today. I hope that you enjoyed it and found it interesting. Before you leave, please remember, like I say, to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Please remember to like the video, and please remember as well to share it around with anyone else whom you think might find it interesting. Also, if you're looking as well to watch a channel that is funny and interesting and has excellent debates about football, then I can recommend a channel called Claude in the Bansters. I put a link in the description for this video for them. It's 2 lads. They used to work with Claude from AFTV until he sadly passed recently. But yeah, it's a brilliant channel. I can't recommend it thoroughly enough. It does get really heated on there when the 2 lads start arguing particularly about Arsenal and so on. So yeah, and I go on there and watch the videos and make comments and whatnot. and I love it. I think it's fantastic. So if you want to check it out, go ahead. They're a great couple of guys, and yeah, it's a great channel. So I can't recommend it thoroughly enough. Anyway, thanks very much for watching today. Like I say, I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to take care of yourselves. And just so you know, I'll be back again next Saturday with another video for you. And that one will be probably the next episode in this Memories of the Football Terrace series. What years that's going to cover at the moment, I'm not sure, because it all depends how much I'm covering. I thought I was going to be able to get away with doing much more on this one, but yeah, I wasn't. So this one, like I say, was from 1980 to 84. And so we'll see what the next one brings. But anyway, like I say, I hope you enjoyed it. And I look forward to seeing you all next Saturday. So please take care, and take care. Make sure you look after yourselves and make sure you spread some love and happiness around the world. And take care of yourselves. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Thanks a lot. Bye.